Good evening. My name's Charlie Turnbull. This is the Beer and Cheese Show. No, it's the Cheese Show. It's the Cheese Show. But tonight, it's beer and cheese. It's beer and cheese. We've got the fantastic, the awesome, the amazing Cheryl Cade, who is a beer goddess, or is that a fair comment?
I like it. I'll take it.
Okay, well, I'll go with cheese god. You go with beer goddess, and we're good to go.
Perfect marriage there.
All right.
Although, just don't tell my husband.
Don't tell my wife. Okay, good. It's right. Nobody's watching. It's fine. Right. Okay. Now you've got for us. I'm really excited about this. I don't know any of these ales. These ones turned up. I hope it doesn't sort of do too much shine. If I do it like that, people can see it without shine. This one turned up without me knowing it was coming. 2 bottles of these. And I just love them. They look amazing. But you've also sent me through something from Belgium, 2 from Belgium, one of which is a cherry beer. Is that right?
Yeah.
And Moongazer, which is one of your locals.
Yes, indeed. So what you have there in your hand is a local ruby beer from Moongazer Ales Nibbler. And we've got 3 cheeses as well.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got the Sinden, the Baron Bygod, and the Smoked Dapple. And the Nibbler the Nibbler that you're holding up is sort of like basically to go with the Smoked Dapple.
Okay.
And stuff.
I've forgotten. I've got my yellow background on, which means my cheese is disappearing. Oh no! It's like, whoa! Look at that. How weird is that? It's like I am the cheese. Anyway, right. So you're going to have to do the holding up to the camera thing. So firstly, let's hear about you. You're from East Anglia. You're at the north top right hand corner, sort of Norfolk area, aren't you?
Yeah, we're the bump, the witch's bottom. If you describe the map of the England like the witch on the broomstick.
Which I've never done. That is new. I'm loving it.
Well, I heard that first comment in Belgium, and they went, "Oh, you're the bum of the witch," and I was like, "Yeah, all right."
Okay, you learned something new. I'm absolutely loving that. We are the witch. Well, you are the witch's bottom, which makes me down near Brighton, her feet. I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
You're the feet or the hands.
Okay. I'm going to have to go back to look at the map of England. Go. Anyway, no, stay on subject. Right. Stay on subject. Come on, we can't.
So, I'm a beer sommelier. Started off as a beer sommelier first with my husband, who's also a qualified beer sommelier. Just looking, both love beers, wanted to do something different with our lives, and both qualified with the Beer Academy. Mm-hmm. And then a few years ago, I have to thank one of your students, Johnny, for telling me to do the level 1 Cheese Academy. And I came out of doing that with Cheese Plus. And it was like, okay, I like beer, but I love cheese. And that drove me on to, in the first lockdown, I did the level 2 with the Academy and absolutely loved it. And then had the pleasure of becoming a training partner for the Academy.
You're one of the team. You're one of the team. You know, you're on the bus. Or whatever the phrase is.
Yes.
That's very exciting. So, you know, I see Natalie's here tonight. I'm training a team. We've got 9 people doing level 2 this week. People really enjoy it. We thought that we would be getting, you know, professionals onto level 2. Actually, it's an awful lot of really, cheese lovers. The people who are the wise, the great, and the good, who know that a bit more knowledge makes their cheese pleasure that much bigger.
And I think as well, you've got a lot of people wanting to know where their food comes from and having a better understanding of what actually is involved in their food and reconnecting with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Now, you've got 2 beers here from Belgium.
Yes.
Now, the UK population of cheese lovers is generally not familiar with Belgian cheeses, and it's a slight shame we don't have any tonight, but maybe that's for another time. But the Belgium has really good cheeses as well. I think it all comes out of that whole abbey monastery thing going down there.
It does, although you'd be surprised the abbeys and the monasteries didn't really, as we know them, didn't really kick off till around about 1793. 1805, when basically the Napoleon kicked out most of their French abbeys, and they then moved into Belgium and so on and so forth. So abbeys as we know them in Belgium didn't really Although the first beer we actually have, the Orval, which is this wonderful one here.
So cool. Yeah, no, I was looking for his Twitter handle today. There's actually an Orval Beers Lovers Club of some form that's dedicated to this beer.
That is because this beer is so good. Trappist beers in general are recognised as being some of the best beers in the world. So, and
now, just Trappist means I don't speak, doesn't it? Isn't
yes,
keep your trap shut? Isn't that what that all comes from?
It comes from that. It's basically the strict order of the Benedictines.
So they say nothing and they brew good beer. That's what we're hearing.
Basically.
All right. Well, come on. Let's kick off. Let's kick off.
Kick off. Now, whilst you're pouring your beer, the thing to look for a Trappist beer, it might be a bit lively.
Okay. Lively's word. I think I've just contained it. Okay, we're back in the house. Hold the glass. Yeah. Should I have let it sit? Has it got yeast in there or anything that I need to be aware of?
It has got yeast. This is one of the few Trappist beers that is actually dry hopped, but also it has Brettanomyces. Sorry?
What does dry hopped mean?
Dry hopped means that at the end of the brewing process, the hops are added so that it gets more of a hop flavour.
Okay.
But also this beer has yeast added to it just before it's bottled. And the yeast that's added is Brettanomyces yeast. And that Brettanomyces yeast continues to eat the sugars. So when this beer is really young, it tastes a lot more malty and a lot sweeter as it ages. And the one you've got is 2 years old. If you have a look on the label, it will actually say bottled on the 21st of the 8th, 2018.
It does. Yes, I can confirm that.
Use by date is the 20th of the 23rd. Yep. 2023.
Yeah,
Use by.
Yes, yeah.
But ignore that. This will keep going for years. This will change and develop.
This is a bit like one of those cheesemakers in the West Country who tells me, ignore the label on my brie, just keep it for an extra 10 days and all that kind of thing. It's a live product and will continue doing its live thing as long as you don't do anything stupid.
And my favourite period is the one that we are drinking. We've just got this because I run the World Beer Bar at Norwich Beer Festival, and we actually are known for aging beers. And this is one of the styles that we age.
So you're like a beer affineur, kind of.
Yes.
Wow, loving that. This is great.
Exactly.
So 2018, we're in 2021. So it's what my children would call middle two here. We've got 2.5 years under our belt. But you're saying it would do another couple of years.
I've drunk one that's 20 plus.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I've just had a smell. I've spilt it all over the Baron by God, which is not the plan. Okay.
That's fine. It goes with it.
Okay. So, but is this one of those beers I should have treated more gently so that the yeast didn't rise into the beer? Chill it, get out the fridge only a few minutes before you want to serve it, then serve it. You should have this fluffy brown tan head. In Belgium, you want a head that's about 2 fingers high. And Okay, so bring yours up. Yours, you've managed to keep more crystal than mine. Mine's got a fuzziness because I've let my yeast come up. So yours is
fine.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine for you to drink that yeast and everything. It will just help. And actually will give the beer a little bit more body.
That is delicious beer. It is it's what I think of a small bubble beer. So it's got a light fizz, a very gentle but so is it a bitter or is it a lager?
It's more like a pale ale.
Okay, so it is the bitter end of the bitter spectrum.
It's more at the bitter than a lager. Definitely not a lager, because for it to be a lager, it would have to be bottom fermented. This beer is top fermented with yeast. There's technical terms.
There are technical terms. Yes, I do know. I don't often use the phrase bottom fermented, but I am aware of lagering kind of thing.
Yeah.
So where are you taking us into the cheese land to go with this really quite extraordinarily delicious Orval?
Those lovely light bubbles made me think of Sinden Hill. That light moussiness, lemony.
We all like Sinden Hill. This is an absolutely astonishingly good cheese.
This was an excuse for me to revisit Sinden Hill. And I was like, what beer? It has to be my champagne of the beer world. And that's how I classed Orval. It's like a champagne. You can lay it in your cellar and it will go with most cheeses.
I would agree. It's got a dry bitterness in its the last quarter of the flavour. So reminding people, Sinden Hill is a lovely little truncated pyramid, sort of a little bit like a fat Valençay, you might say. It's got the Penicillium geotrichum. The one I've got here is it's got quite a wet young skin. It's not bubbled up into sort of firmness. And I can feel the moisture under the rind, showing there's kind of a liquid breakdown just under the skin, which we're expecting to have a bit of fun with in a second.
The one I've got is beautifully creamy, just under the rind. And then you've got like nearly porcelain, crumbly.
Porcelain, good word. Right, let's see if we can have a little bit of...
it is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah. You can't really... Let's see if I might have to get a bit closer here. Can we see? Can we make this? Can we see that that's getting that? Can we see that it's getting that little creamy edge underneath the skin? Some people don't like that. Other people do. I'm in the do camp.
I am as well. I like to see that. And in fact, I like seeing them go further and into that center. But when you're having beer with it as well, it's this one, definitely have a little bit of the cheese in your mouth when you have a sip of the beer.
I do advise that. Otherwise, you dribble. Okay. So the goat's cheese has the thick velvetiness, the density of the cream and the goat and the velvet and the little bit of sweetness. The beer emphasizes its vegetal flavors, so you're getting I suppose the hoppiness is overlapping a bit and getting something going on there.
Yeah, and then you're getting those lovely little bubbles just cutting it all and lifting in that moussey texture of the cheese and that light featheriness and just lifting everything. I just, for me, this is one of the beers that will marry with most cheeses. It does struggle against some really punchy ones, but as it ages, it changes and will develop a little bit more tartness.
I'm not familiar with this aging of beers. It's not something I have a lot of experience of, so I'm absolutely fascinated with this. So you've got a beer that can go 5-ish years.
Yep.
And you're matching it with cheese that would struggle to go 5 weeks.
Yes.
So there really is this is age and beauty or something like that.
Definitely. It's like a grandparent leading a younger sibling forwards, and with the synergy that you have with beer and cheese, both made with 4 main ingredients, and yet you can have such a diversity, that it is a marriage made in heaven. And these
a lot of Belgian specialty cheeses are of this Sinden Hill type, small, unique, sort of that 150 to 250 gram sort of size. So maybe there is a predisposition here.
And if you go to a bar in Belgium, quite often you'll be given your beer and you can have it with a little bowl of cheese and a little bit of celery salt.
Well, the learning here, everybody, is that we should spend more time in Belgium drinking beer and eating cheese. Okay, what do you got next?
Next one is we're going to move on to England. We're going to move back to the UK. We're going to move on to the nibbler.
Okay.
So our little bunny rabbits. Oh, sorry. Well, actually, it's a hare. So the reason the brewery picked the hare as the logo is that they have a lot of hares in the area.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, this one is 4%. I would not suggest aging this one because it's too low in ABV. Basically, if you've got over 8%, you can probably age the beer.
Oh, God, I never really looked. Okay, we've got 6.2% on your Orval, so he's running a much darker beer here.
Much darker. Sort of tan head. Little bit of a head. Give it a little swirl. If you want to get more aroma, pop your hand over the actual glass, and it will collect a little bit more aroma, and then pop your head in and do little doggy sniffs. Don't overfill the olfactory system, or what a friend of mine calls a drive-by, where you sniff as you pass over.
It's not got a big nose. It's
very gentle. You get the Marisalta malts, which are our local malts.
It's got the classic bitterness of the malt, but still, it's also got a very rich, warm caramel malt thing happening.
That sweetness, that caramel, and yet there's also those hints of nut. And for me, it makes me think of walking through dry woodlands.
So you're thinking more cob nuts, that kind of of. I think when you said nuts, I was wandering off into almond territory. I think there's a.
Oh no. We are in the UK. We're much walnutty and sort of like those cob nuts, hazelnuts, all those sort of things. So I'm
going to go on a limb here. I think this might be one of those beers, while delicious, might be better out of a cask.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, because it's got that kind of bottled, big, small bubble thing. I don't mean it's got zzz, kind of. So I imagine that out of a cask, we're getting a much more complete experience, and the carbonation is much more balanced.
Out of the cask, it's much more gentle, and the flavors travel, and it becomes much softer.
Okay. All right. So who are we taking home with our moon
We
gate?
are taking home the smoked dapple.
Oh, okay.
Now, I know this is one I don't think you've experienced before.
No, I don't know this cheese at all.
Classic cheddar, produced by Ferndale Farm. Mum, God, I want to call her Margaret, but I don't think it's Margaret Betts. But now her son, Arthur Betts, makes the cheese. She supposedly retires, but still goes and collects the milk from Binham at 6 a.m. every morning. So, and it's made classically as a cheddar, cloth wrapped, cellared, but they also smoke it on site.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to bring attention to this. Oh, I can't do it. You're going to have to do it for me, Cheryl.
Okay.
My invisible cheese. I will describe it, Cheryl. You might have to turn your light off, Cheryl, because it's being too bright on there. So what we can see is that.
Is that better?
Nope. For those people who need to know about cheese, there are two ways to make cheeses smoked. One is you can break the cheese down and add an additive right through the center of it and then reform it. So cheeses are done that way. Or you can actually put it in a smokery. And the thing about putting it in a smokery is that cheeses, this is so weird. Look at that. The smoke doesn't travel very fast. So you can only smoke relatively small pieces of cheese. And you can see that this one has been smoked in a portion because the darkness on the smoke is really apparent on each side. I'm going to see if I can do a magic trick here. Cheryl, you need to talk for a second. I just need to see if I can do the background.
I shall talk. So on that rim, you have that beautiful dryness from the smoke and a little bit of, I get a little bit of mushroomy. We're still getting some bricks.
I've gone to bricks to see if I can get the camera to pay attention to you. And we are beginning to get that now.
It is looking much better.
Yeah.
What I like about this cheese is it's got a nice dryness. And as well as those nuts and salt, there is this sort of dryness that also, with that smoke, picks up on the smoked malts in the beer.
Right. Okay.
So as malt's made, it's dried and kilned, and there is an element of that smokiness in the beer, and it sort of like brings that out.
It's a very old English flavour, this smoked cheddar and bitter, isn't it? I mean, it's like
Definitely
one of the sort of great classics of lunchtime pub eating.
It's your ploughman's beer. And this is your ploughman's cheese.
Yeah, ploughman's cheese. And almost like you're tasting, dare I say it, yesterday's fags are still on the floor somewhere. You know, there's a degree of atmosphere going on in this.
Which is, you know, what I always think of a pub is. You know,
Mhm.
I was brought up in pubs, surrounded by sticky carpets and all
Oh,
of
yeah.
that. And those smells that you get in the morning when you first open the pub.
Yes. They're kind of like, how did I not notice that was there the night before? And going, oh, that's why I didn't notice it the night before. But, you know, the cleanliness of the day. Yeah, no, that does have that kind of smell.
And
I would say that was delicious. So congratulations, Mr. Moongazer. Right. What's next then, Cheryl?
what's next? I think I'm going to move you on to how English ale used to taste.
And this is the audit, yeah?
No.
Where are we going
This
next?
is the cherry beer. The fruit
But this
beer.
is a Belgian brewery.
Yep. Bacchus.
Yeah, I was Googling this up, and of course, Bacchus is one of the massively overused words in the drinking industry, whether it's wine or I even have a party every year called a Bacchanalia for exactly that kind of all too much in one night. Okay, we've got no labeling on here at all. This is kind of cool.
No, all the labeling is done on the packaging. Yep.
I suppose in a way that's environmentally friendly, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, well, in Belgium, you're actually paid to recycle your bottles. Just how we used to send our pop bottles back for 10p or whatever.
They tried that. They tried that in the Balkans. Did you hear about this? They tried it in the Balkans, and they turned out that they were paying people too much, so people started making bottles so that they. Not very clever. Anyway, so this is the cherry beer. This is
a cherry beer. Now, the difference with this is it's made as an old ale first,
right,
and then it lays on the real fruit. So it's put in a barrel with the real fruit, so it gets those real fruit flavors to take away some of the tartness of the beer. Now, other tart beers that we have, or more sour beers, would be lambics, those Gurzes, and they also have fruit added to them, and they're also blended. This is not blended, but what you have is an old ale, and there should be hints of redness. If you shone a light through this.
I agree. This has got like first cousin to fizzy Ribena, if you know what I mean.
You can get really, really sweet versions, but I prefer this. This is along the lines of a Rodenbach or a Bourgogne de Flandre, Duchess of Bourgogne's, that old ale. So this is how English beer used to taste.
So why do you say English beer used to taste this way? What makes you say that?
The Louis Pasteur discovered yeast. And he termed that Brettanomyces. Now, Brettanomyces is the yeast that eats all the sugars and turns the beers sour.
Right.
The Brettanomyces comes from British yeast because all English beer, according to him, had those sour notes. Because as beer gets old, if it hasn't been treated, it will age. Sorry, it will go sour. Those wild yeasts get in there, and there's elements of wild yeast. Now, this I've actually picked as an all-rounder. It will pair with the Sinden. It will pair with the cheddar, but it will also go with the Baron by God.
Well, I'm doing my little round the houses here.
Mm-hmm.
It makes the Sinden sweeter.
Yeah. Because quite often if you put fruit with you quite often will put a sweeter fruit with a goat's cheese. Instead, you're putting a sweeter beer. And, you know, it's got those, and yet it's still also got that malt background to work with the cheddar and to think of bread and cheese.
I'm giving the Sinden Hill more points than cheddar so far, but I have to say, I'd like to say I want to get into the Baron Bygone, but I've been into it already. We opened it already. It was sitting there between my wife and I when we were sort of talking earlier. And
that's how much Baron by God I have left from the small one that I bought.
Yeah, well, I got quite a big one, and I've got a bit more left. But you know, but it's funny enough. I looked at it, and it is Baron by God, but it really this particular Baron by God is just so reliant on the way it's matured, and it matures in different ways depending on how you mature it. And this one has real tones of West Country brie, so I'm getting quite a lot of bitter butter. If this one, which is not what I expect from the Baron by God.
I have to say, I'm very much with the Baron going past their use by date, because
Naughty.
I love it with that really oozy centre and
Well,
stuff
this
where
is fully mature. This is 100%. There's not a hint of firmness here at all.
Okay.
Right. We are here to match it with beer. I'm going in with a.
Go in there with the fruit.
I'm not going to put that down as a win.
No.
It's taking the complexity out of the cheese. You still get that rich, the butteriness, the delightful fattiness. You know, that kind of, oh, I'm just enjoying this because it's rich and awesome. But actually, I think it's stripping out the complexity of the cheese.
It has taken those down, and I think maybe one of the sweeter fruit beers without so much of a punch would have actually paired with it slightly better. But
I like to say that the combination of the cherry beer with the fat is nice. The fatness is a nice combination. It's like making more sense of part of the cheese, but not letting another part of the cheese come through, if that's slightly overanalyzing.
It is perfectly correct. And one of the things about the fruit beers is that they are much more they're the Marmite of the beer world. But when they're put with food, that's when they come to light. And I do think it is much more one that pairs better with the goats and lifts that.
I'm putting it down as my favorite with the Cinnamon Hill, without question, of these three.
So I'm going to bring you on to the fourth one.
The
fourth beer.
What you probably didn't know about me is that I used to be an auditor.
Right.
This is all ale.
Well, audit ale comes from Laken's Brewery. I've got to make sure I get it in the. Now, this is another one that you can lay down and age. So apart from the nibbler, all of these, treat them like a wine, put them in your cellar, let them age. So Laken's was a phoenix from the flames. It was a brewery that was closed down when all the breweries amalgamated and then reopened. And their previous head brewer, Will Woods, who used to be at Oakham's, went back through the history books and found a recipe for a beer that was brewed for the colleges and the universities for when they did their audits. And it was like a celebration beer to say, right, we've passed our audit, we're through.
Okay.
So this falls in the sort of barley wine category, but it has a nice hoppiness as well.
You say barley wine. That's quite a good way of putting at it. So this is best before 2025. A beer that's got another 4 years to run. When would this have been brewed?
This is quite fresh because the hops are still quite fresh.
I think it tastes young. It's a bit like cheese. It's not unbalanced. It's just a little bit robust, bunctuous. The flavors are still.
I'm much of the Will's son now brews this beer for Laken's, and I'm much of the opinion, the same as Will, that this beer is better after a year.
Okay. Is this, and we don't think this is a year old, this beer?
Oh, I don't think this is. Usually it has a brewed date. Sometimes no. But
right.
they only brew it once a year. Sorry?
Cinnamon Hill.
Yeah.
It's not. The Cinnamon Hill is holding its own simply because the fat of the cheese is collecting around the edges. It's almost like waiting for that annoying beer to get out of the way, and then it'll come back and deliver all its flavor. There's no melding of the flavors there.
This is too punchy. Way too punchy for something as delicately.
It's been quite stubborn, the Cinnamon Hill, though. It's hanging on in there until the beer is gone.
Yeah, but it's having a divorce. There's arguments going on, but sort of like, especially with the rindy, that under rind ooze of the Baron.
Cheddar's doing better. Let's try the Baron. moment of quiet while we earnestly contemplate beer and cheese. Very serious job we've got here, Cheryl.
The audit as well. I really enjoy the audit with a good blue.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I think you still need to get to your year here.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I do find that with quite a few beers, especially Christmas beers, people bring out beers for Christmas with lots of spices. If you pop them in the cupboard for a year,
they're better. What I mean, like a good Christmas cake. It's like leave it for a year and it's better still.
Yeah, knock down that cinnamon and the cloves because it's had that time, and it brings forward the other spices and flavors that you get and stuff.
Okay, I am. My favorite with the audit is the Baron Bigod. Now, that's a surprise for me. I was not expecting it to be the. But there's a bitterness in the Bigod, which is that kind of candidum kind of thing, and if for some reason it mellows it and just gives you a sweeter Baron Bigod than you have on its own, which is quite delicious. And this is what we often find with really good pairings, is that you've got two cheeses that are individually a little bit uncontrolled. Sometimes matching together makes them behave, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And also what I find is the texture wise, this has much more of a body, much more of a texture going on, and it matches with the Baron's texture as well. With all the beers. And one of the things I always have 3 or 4 beers or 3 or 4 drinks with any cheese board, because they all interact so differently.
Oh, the discipline of your life, having to have 3 or 4 beers with every cheese board.
I call it study. It's research materials.
Well, somebody down here I've been noticing is talking about the importance of research. There, Jacqueline, she was talking about it. There you go. It's all about the research. Definitely,
Jacqueline, I fully agree. You have to research them all.
Right, we are slightly over time, but if anyone's got any questions, please ask them now. That's what about. The question that I'm asking is, which do I like most? I actually haven't got a clue. I'm going to go away and do more research with my wife. We will sit down, we'll make good notes, and we will we'll check it out. We could check it out. I think the takeaway for me is the fun of really interesting and really good beers with really interesting and really good cheeses and good chat. I mean, that's what our takeaway, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's food and drink is all about the company that you have as well around it.
I fully agree. Pardon me. We have a lot of chats about what the things taste like and why do they taste like, because that's sort of our job. Pardon me. But at the end of the day, if you can't share it, it's not as much fun. You know, that's the gig.
And that's why I find wherever I travel, especially in Belgium, if you start talking to people about their beer or their cheese or their food, I mean, the Norfolk Dapple is perfect for a witloof with cream sauce and with a pale ale next door to it.
Well, we're going to have to wrap this up. I'm just going to respond slightly to Natalie, who said the most hypocritical thing of all time. She's on our level 2 course here. She has never turned up to a session without an exceptionally good bottle of wine. Her taste in wine is very good. So tell me not to be too drunk tomorrow. On you, mate. So that just goes to show that this is about the pleasure and the pleasure of having Cheryl here today. Thank you very much for having us. Cheryl is teaching level 1. Have you got any courses coming up, Cheryl?
Basically, I've got level 1 happening in May, and then I have, and that's online over 3 days, 2.5 hours over 3 days. And then I'm also running a few sort of fun courses where people can drop in and enjoy
and have some fun. So when do you expect to be back with Bums on Seats? Do you think you can do that? Is that your May one?
I would like to be back with Bums on Seats in August, hopefully.
Okay, I'm hoping earlier than that. I really hope that will come in. But we can start having that real energy of the room as people learn to love cheese together, or learn to love cheese more together.
Well, my thing is that most of my events happen within pubs, so I've got to wait for the pub rush to die down.
So there's some space in the back.
Yes.
Yeah, don't give up on that. That's 2023, mate. Right. Okay. We got to close. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Thank you, everybody who's joined us this evening. It's been a pleasure. And if there's one takeaway, everyone, drink more cheese and eat more beer.
Definitely.